Alright, well hello people of the world and welcome to my channel, Sir Cools a Lot. You're cool, I'm cool, we are all super cool. So as always, I have a cool video to share with you. This one is from a recent trip, a road trip via car that I took from San Francisco to Los Angeles, stayed the weekend and then came back. One of my subscribers recently brought my attention to a product called RX Coolers Mini Blue. I guess blue was the particular model that I picked. This product is being sold by the For All Family reseller company. You can acquire the RX Coolers Mini from a number of manufacturers, depending on where you like to shop. In any case, I was very interested in this cooler because I was looking for something that was maybe a little bit smaller and more agile for just 1 week trips, or perhaps if you have a pen cartridge that can be refilled, you may not need so much space, and so perhaps this could be a handy medicine cooler for that purpose as well. As you all know, I'm very fond of the For All Family Voyager cooler travel case at the moment. And so what I decided to do with this particular trip was to quite literally put them head to head. So you'll hopefully find this video experience very interesting. One heads up, this was just a weekend trip and I actually didn't need a medicine dose that weekend, so I didn't actually transport live medicine. I probably wouldn't have done this anyway with a new medicine cooler kit that I haven't yet tried out for the first time. And so, but anyway, this was just a nice opportunity to get a little bit of data and see what this RX Coolers mini travel case can actually do. The S on the end of RX Coolers is not a mistake, that's just quite literally what it's called. And so please make a note that it's not a typo or an attempt to somehow make that name plural. It's simply what the product is called, RX Coolers. And so don't call me out for that. If you see that S appear throughout the video and you see me stating RX Coolers, even though it's just one unit or item. So anyway, okay, let's keep going. So yeah, here are all my disclaimers. Feel free to take a look at those. The main point here is that I'm on a personal quest to find the best medicine cooler products out there for my travel needs. And then for this video, I am focused on the For All Family Voyager cooler and also the For All Family RX Coolers. So let's jump on in and show you a little bit what I learnt on this trip. Okay, so first of all, what was the live journey? So here's kind of a rough overview of what I did. So it was basically a weekend trip. I set off very early on Sunday morning, around like 5 or 6 a.m. From the Bay Area, San Francisco, specifically San Mateo. I drove all the way down to Los Angeles, California. At Los Angeles, California, I arrived about midday. I parked the car in the sun in Los Angeles for a couple of hours, about 3 or 4 hours, and then I checked into a hotel around about 3 p.m. At which point I moved the coolers to the hotel room and then I left them there overnight. In the morning, I basically drove back from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And then I had a little bit of extra mileage in me to do a little bit more testing. So when I got back home, I left the units in my lounge running for another 3 days, just to kind of see how they would fare and see how the new unit that I haven't, the new cooler that I haven't tried out yet, performed over several days. The reason for this trip was I was helping a family member move. their university year was finished, and I went down to Los Angeles to help them move out of their dorm and into a new place. And so that was the side reason for why I did this. So let's jump on in. This is a quick view of the two products. You can check out my other videos for the For All Family Voyager. I've extensively documented my travel journeys with this one. And then here you can see on the left what the For All Family RX Coolers Mini looks like. This is a stock photo from the Alibaba website from the company Secrets Boxes that also makes them. I will actually create another video a little bit later on that really reviews this product more thoroughly and in detail. This video here is just an opportunity, just a happenstance opportunity to grab some live data while I was doing a nice weekend drive here. I thought it would be a good test run to see how it would perform under some different conditions. So a quick experimental setup. Here you can see kind of the inner workings of the RX coolers on the left, and then on the right side you can see the For All Family Voyager. So if you're not familiar with these coolers, they're both battery powered. They have a thermoelectric cooling system. They both have this aluminium sort of rod that comes out of the cooler that supposedly kind of aids and facilitates the convection of the heat more efficiently to the cooling plate to transfer the energy. So I am using a couple of temperature sensors for this test. I'm using the SwitchBot temperature sensors. So in each of the coolers there are two SwitchBot sensors. One is positioned kind of towards the lower side of the chamber, and then obviously the other one is positioned to the higher side of the chamber, and that can kind of give us an idea of how variable the temperature is at the different positions within the cooler. And then I'm also using a Tempify sensor, and I position this at the base of the cooling chamber. And actually, it's quite nice because it also allows the SwitchBot sensors to stay in position a little bit higher up in the chamber. I also actually used a little elastic band to keep them in position with respect to each other. I always calibrate all my temperature probes before each trip and experiment, and I use an Elitech. I have several Elitech digital temperature thermometers that have certified calibration, and so I use those temperature probes to make sure that my sensors are running at and measuring the precise temperatures. So heads up on that. All right, so let's jump on in and show you some videos of the journey. So actually for this journey I needed a bit more cargo space, so I grabbed a car rental from Hertz. The car rental that I picked up from the President's Circle Row at San Francisco Airport was actually a Jeep 2005 Compass Trailhawk. So I was actually really surprised that I managed to get this, but it was just sitting there in the President's Circle Row, and I thought I would just basically take that one. So here's what it looks like, and this is the vehicle that I used for the journey. So in the morning this was Sunday morning, I packed the car, got it all ready, and of particular interest was the coolers. I quite literally just put them both on the back seat of the car in the middle seat. I strapped a seatbelt around them, and that was it. That was where they were going to stay for the drive. I also, in a little net bag, transported an ambient temperature probe, which was also a calibrated switchbot unit, and this was to basically measure the ambient temperature outside, next to the cooling system, so you can kind of get an idea of what the difference is between the cooler and its exposed ambient temperature. So let's keep going. Here's a little picture of the journey halfway. I think I was about 3 hours into the drive down to Los Angeles on the I-5 freeway. Stopped at a gas station, and I couldn't help it. I took a couple of shots of the coolers there sitting on the windshield of the car. So at least you get some sense that I really did this trip. So then obviously arriving at Los Angeles. Actually, this is the university campus at Los Angeles, the University of Southern California Village. And so on arrival here, I basically I arrived around 11-12 lunchtime, and I street parked here for about 3 or so hours. So the car just sat out in the sun. It was quite a warm day as well, and so I figured that would be quite a good additional pressure test to see how these coolers are going to do. I left them both inside the car, on the back seat in the middle. So, and there's you can see the little video of that on the left there that played, so you can kind of see roughly where I was. A little bit later on, around 3 p.m., I checked into the hotel. Actually, it's the USC Hotel, University of Southern California Hotel. And so this was around 3 p.m. And of interest, note the charge remaining on the power bank. So I was using my favorite INEU power banks for this trip, and the For All Family Voyager had a charge of about 33% remaining by the time we arrived at the hotel at 3 p.m. And then the RX cooler still had a remaining charge of about 51%, which is kind of cool. Those batteries had been running for about 9 hours at the time that I took those photos, to give you a sense of how long they were going for. So both very impressive, but I was additionally impressed by how much charge was still remaining on the RX coolers. So the question then is, does it hold the temperature that it claims to be able to hold? So Alright, so before showing you the temperature data, one more interesting thing. So I was keeping an eye on the charge of the battery, and by basically 10:24 p.m., the For All Family Voyager had finally trickled down to having 1% battery left with the INEU power bank. So incredibly, what that translates to, and I had the exact sort of times when I switched to battery, is I did that at 4:47 a.m. on Sunday morning, and that thing had been running for 17 hours 37 minutes by the time we got to 10:24 p.m. So that's super impressive. And then incredibly, the RX coolers still had 23% battery left with the INEU power bank. So I was estimating that it was probably going to run for about maybe 20 hours at this point, which is really, really cool. So then the question is, well, what about the temperature? Is it going to do a good job of holding the temperature? At this point, I did have to plug the units in because I was going to bed, and I wanted them to be fully reach charge for the journey back home in the morning. And so I didn't actually let the RX cooler kind of run its course to the end. But anyway, very, very impressed by the energy aspect of this unit. So getting through the on-the-road part of the video here. So this is just me in the morning. The car is packed, and basically I am getting ready to drive back from Los Angeles to the Bay Area, San Francisco. All right, so let's take a look at the temperature data. So here are my usual graphs. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I'm going to try and walk you through this. So the whole graph, just keep in mind, so it starts basically around about sort of just before midnight on Saturday, and then runs all the way through to Thursday of the following week. So that's kind of the range of the graph here. And so there's a lot of cool things going on. The first thing to keep in mind is the black line here represents the ambient temperature that was measured by that ambient temperature probe that I mentioned. You've got some critical temperature markers here. You've got the 36 Fahrenheit mark in red. You've got the 46 Fahrenheit mark in red, and then you've got the 86 Fahrenheit mark as well, for if you're concerned about critical insulin temperature. So, the quick thing you can immediately see is that throughout the entire testing, both the 4 All Family Voyager and the 4 All Family RX Coolers Mini stayed within the 36 to 46 Fahrenheit zone, which is absolutely awesome. The greenish wavy plots, because as you know, the temperature does oscillate with these units as it kind of cools down. It has that cooling cycle where it sort of cools down to 36 Fahrenheit, warms itself back up, switches back on, then cools down. So it has that thermal cycle. So you'll see that oscillation in the temperature graph. So the green plots are for the RX cooler, and the purple plots that you see, the wavy purple plots, are for the 4 All Family Voyager. There's actually 6 data sets that sit in this graph, but they very much overlap each other. But I'll say a little bit more about that in the upcoming slides. So a couple of things. So at the ambient temperature level, if you follow the graph, you can see that, so when I took it out of the freezer, packed it, then the ambient temperature probe quickly goes up to room temperature. I start my drive, so my drive starts, you can see the temperature cools down a little bit. The sun actually rises, so I start as a night drive, then the sun comes up, so the temperature goes up a little bit. I do some stops, garage stops and stuff, so the temperature kind of spikes a little bit. But then here you can see when I arrive in Los Angeles around about 11-12 lunchtime on Sunday, the ambient temperature really goes up, almost touching on 85 Fahrenheit for a couple of hours, and that's basically when I left the car parked in the sun. Then a little bit later on, you can see the temperature starts to fall quite significantly. It kind of falls back down to the 70s. This is where I'm sort of checking into the hotel, and basically I go to the hotel room, and then actually I switch the air conditioning on the hotel room, and it even goes down to about almost shy of 65 Fahrenheit. Later on in the evening, as I'm preparing to go for bed, I turn up the air conditioning a little bit, or well, maybe I should say I turn the heat up on the air conditioning so it's not so cool in the room, and it's a little bit more comfortable for sleeping, and so you can kind of see a little spike in the temperature there. Then, of course, I check out of the hotel. You can kind of see this sort of a little bit of noise, but then you can kind of see me getting in the car. I'm driving for a little bit. The sun comes up. It's kind of midday, so the temperature of the car kind of peaks a little bit, but not too much. I take a couple of breaks, and then I finally make it home around 3 p.m. on Monday. So that's kind of this zone here of the graph, if you can kind of see my mouse move here. And then here, the rest of the graph is just really the units, the ambient temperature of my lounge at home. It's sort of cycling between daytime and nighttime. So that's kind of what that wave is, and it just sort of sits there. So as you can see, both coolers perform incredibly well. One of my subscribers sent me a message asking a little bit about whether I'd observed the coolers falling slightly in temperature when the temperature sort of hovers between being kind of in the sort of the 60s, 70s, and the 85s, the 80, 85s, and actually the answer is yes to that. So these thermoplate coolers, they are most efficient around I think the 80 Fahrenheit mark, thereabouts. And so when you increase the temperature above or below, they can sometimes lose efficiency a little bit. And so when they're running at around 60 or 70, they're not quite as efficient or as optimal in terms of that thermal cooling transference than they would be when they're in their 80s. And so you can actually see that here, where as the temperature, amazingly, when the car was parked in the sun, goes up to 85, the units actually, both cooling units, become a little bit more efficient, and you can see that they start the average cooling temperature falls a few notches. It falls just a couple of degrees, but not, nothing dramatic. That's probably about as much information as I'll share on this particular graph. The next graph is kind of interesting because it now focuses in on just the 4-All family Voyager. So as you know, there were 3 probes in the 4-All family Voyager. There was one sitting close to the thermal plate, the cooling plate, one that was kind of sitting a little bit further down, and then the Tempify probe was sitting at the base. So the Tempify probe is actually the dark purple plot here. And so it's the one that's the warmest, and this makes logical sense because it's the furthest away from the cooling plate. And then obviously the temperature probe, which is highlighted in the lighter purple, is the one that's closest to the cooling plate, and that one actually shows through as being the cooler of the 3 probes. But impressively, no matter where you are within the container, you're always below or between 36 and 46 Fahrenheit, which is super awesome. Towards the end of the experiment here, when you switch the unit off, you can see within a few hours it warms back up to room temperature pretty quickly. So the next graph here focuses on the RX cooler. So what you will see here is very much the same story in terms of the closer the probe is to the cooling plate, the cooler it is. And then the Tempify sensor is obviously the furthest away to from the cooling plate, and that's the dark green plot, and you can see that it's kind of the warmest of the probes. But again, all of these temperature measurements incredibly also were below 46, but they were much closer to the 46 Fahrenheit mark, that line. A little bit of an interesting difference was that although the RX cooler was closer to the 46 Fahrenheit mark, the variability or the range of the temperature that the unit was operating at was much tighter. So let me flip back to that previous graph. So now look at the range of the temperature range of the 4-All family Voyager. So between being at being close to the thermal cooling plate or being furthest away from the cooling plate, there's about a 2 to 3 temperature difference between those different zones. But again, the unit maintains, no matter where you are in the unit, you're always between 36 and 46. So just kind of interesting to note that. And then look how tight the range of the temperature is for the RX cooler. So very tight data. But again, it also sits very comfortably between the 36 and the 46 Fahrenheit. No excursions throughout this entire weekend drive. So that's kind of the quick tour of the data. Feel free to pause these these sort of screen slides and study them at your leisure, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me a note about that. So in conclusion, very, very impressed. I'm happy that the 4 family Voyager continues to perform. I've done a few videos on that system, and it's not failed me yet, and so I was very glad to see that it passed the road test. Because I've done a lot of flying tests, but I actually haven't done a road trip yet, and I don't think I've ever parked a 4 family Voyager in a car for a couple of hours, so that was kind of cool to see. The journey time, so the drive was about 6 hours each way. As I said, I parked the car in the sun for about 3 hours. I stayed in a hotel overnight, and so on and so forth. So this was quite a considerable stress test for this system. And very excited to report that the RX Coolers Mini performed very, very well. It performed basically on par with the 4 family Voyager, noting that it was running at just a smidge of a temperature zone slightly higher. But that said, I think based on what I'm seeing here, I am feeling very confident and comfortable to travel with the RX Coolers on a 1-week trip. I say 1-week trip because it's a much smaller container, and so I can only essentially transport 1 auto-injector pen for the medicine that I need, which is fine for a 1-week trip. And so interestingly enough, in July I have a 1-week trip lined up, and I am thinking that I'm going to roll with the RX Cooler for that trip, so stay tuned for that video. Heads up, I've had to do a lot of traveling recently. I did another trip to Switzerland. I have another one coming up. I've got a couple of domestic trips, and so I'm a little bit behind on some videos that I was planning. But I still have a cool video to make on my learnings around the possibility of using a Yeti Rambler to transport 3 months of medicine. So I've actually figured out how to make that possible, and so I'm looking forward to being able to share that with you. So that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this particular video. And thank you for watching my channel. Stay cool as always, and I will talk to you again. Have a good day. Bye bye.